Good evening, Bola. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Welcome to the Account Solution webinar, Ask the Accountant. Thank you once again for joining us for another interesting webinar. The Account Solution is the learning platform that offers practical solutions to modern accounting challenges. It comprises of accountants from diverse industries and at various career stages. So this platform serves as a hub for both experienced accountants to share their invaluable insights and also provides mentoring to aspiring accountants. This platform has existed for over 5 years and it continues to play a very pivotal role in helping numerous accountants secure employment opportunities. We've been having series of webinars with many interesting topics. Today, we're going to be considering another interesting topic this evening. So we have a guest that will be taking us through the topic, Special Control Unit Against Money Laundering, SCUML. It's a new regulation. It's something that every business is required to have right now. So we are going to be listening to our guest speaker today, who is going to throw more insight to us to help us understand everything we need to know so that we can be informed and we can also be compliant. So this evening, it's my pleasure to introduce to us Mr. Chris Madu. Mr. Chris Madu is a certified accountant. He's also an MBA holder and he's an entrepreneur. So with a rousing ovation, please join me as I introduce Mr. Chris Madu. Over to you, sir.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Bolanle.
You're welcome.
It's amazing. Even though I hear this your introduction every Sunday almost, it still appears fresh and vibrant. You're doing an amazing job moderating this week after week.
Thank you so much.
All right. Having said that, I want to also appreciate the Account Solution platform or consult platform group, Ask the Accountants leadership for keeping this live and running consistently for months now. Consistency is something that is kind of hard to achieve, but it's very sweet when you keep it going. Well done. I know a whole lot goes on behind the background. So well done to the leadership of this platform. And good evening and welcome to today's Ask the Accountant program, Sunday evening, 8 p.m. My name, like you heard it, is Chris Madu, and I'm excited to be sharing with you a very important topic that affects most of us or people that we know or we do business with. In fact, this topic affects everybody. So long as you're in the financial system, so long as you trade, you work, you spend money, you travel, this is exactly for you. But before I go into that, I just want to take some time to give you a bit background of myself. You already heard I'm a qualified accountant. Besides that, I had, before my entrepreneurial journey, I had 10 years plus in the banking industry. At first, I started as a control person, which most accountants will know as internal audit. From there, I think I was redeployed to one unit. They call them fleet management as transport officer. I got to that place and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here as a qualified accountant, having spent 1.5 years in internal audit, which by the way, wasn't as professional as I would want. It seemed more like routine. There are rules for you to keep as an internal auditor. You have to ensure that those rules are abide, the marketers, the operation staff that you see in the banks, they abide by those rules on a consistent basis. So it wasn't like challenging. Now, I got to fleet management. As much as that place wasn't professional, it was more challenging to me. Even though the first week I got there, I started to talk to someone in treasury. I just wanted to do something professional. But very soon I saw that the work was very enormous and I couldn't keep up with that discussion. I had started to go into treasury. So I just went full swing into transport office, fleet management, vendors management, drivers management, cost control and price intelligence. I did that for a year and a half. Then I went to financial control, the place I always wanted to be. Unfortunately, in financial control, I didn't get financial reporting. Financial reporting is that place where you prepare accounts, publish accounts, discuss standards, different entries. I was put somewhere called regulatory. And in regulatory, it seemed like routine as well. We just had some things that we had to report to the central bank on a weekly, monthly, yearly, quarterly basis, like that. The Security and Exchange Commission, NDIC, so in terms of regulations and making reports to regulations, I'm kind of used to those things, but I didn't enjoy it. I wanted financial reporting. After I'd done 2 years in financial control and I saw that they weren't letting me cross over to financial reporting, I thought that I was done with the banking industry. Let me now leave this banking thing. In fact, I know to again. So I raised my hand. I said, okay, before I leave this banking, let me just see what sales is like. The marketing area, there's the place that is called sales. It's not direct marketing, but it's sort of marketing indirectly. So I put up my hand and I went there. And it was the place I stayed the longest. It was the place I thought I was going to stay the shortest. And it was the place I came in contact with SCUML. Yeah, that was. Now, if you're in customer-facing area of a bank, there's something you would notice. At that time, we would sign on a yearly basis an undertaking that we had gone through the training for AML, CFT, that's anti-money laundering, and combating the financing of terrorism. It was a yearly thing. We had to go through that program and we had to sign that we had gone through. In fact, it was so serious in the bank at that time that if you hadn't signed it for any period, you were not going to receive salary for the periods following until you had gone to make the compliance. So SCUML is a very serious thing. But like we all know, like we would see in the presentation, there's what we call designated non-financial institutions, and then there is designated financial institutions. The designated financial institutions refer to the banks, the commercial banks, the microfinance banks, finance houses, all those places that report to the Central Bank of Nigeria. And of course, they also report to the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. But as it concerns designated non-financial institutions or designated non-financial businesses and professionals, the report is done to SCUML, which is under the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. All right, at this point, we would go to our presentation. Yeah, so this is it. The Special Control Units Against Money Laundering. Now, before we go straight into SCUML, let's look at some of the terms we'll be encountering. We'll be encountering these terms, of course. SCUML, the Special Control Unit Against Money Laundering, is the department under the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission charged with the responsibility of registering, monitoring, and supervising the activities of the DNFBP. I just mentioned that. And then we will hear about the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. The Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit is the federal agency responsible for collecting and analyzing disclosures from reporting organizations in order to produce financial intelligence to other agencies. These ones are responsible for Nigeria. AML-CFT refers to anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism. This refers to the laws, measures, and regulations put in place to fight against money laundering and the finance of terrorism. I just mentioned the DNFBP and the DNFI. They both refer to the same thing: designated non-financial businesses and professionals or institutions. These are affected entities that are under the control of SCUML through the EFCC. For example, yourself and myself. If you're a consultant, you're a qualified accountant, you render services, you're in the areas that have been designated required to acquire SCUML for the Nigerian finance industry or the banking environment. We also have CBTR or CTR, which is cash-based transaction reports, currency transaction reports. This is the required reporting threshold to be rendered by the DNFIs to the NFIU and EFCC within a certain period. We also have Financial Task Force, Financial Action Task Force. This one, like the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, but this is an international body responsible for regulations and policies and procedures, more like inspection for prevention of money laundering and terrorism financing across the world. It's just like they even had the Nigerian Accounting Standard Board, SAS, we had the International Accounting Standard Board, because let's face it, when it comes to money laundering, it is more of an international crime than it is local. It is local as well, but it is more of an international crime than it is local. So countries collaborate, come together, put their heads together, bring policies in place to ensure that they are checkmating these crimes across the world. And for this one, the UNODC is United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. This is the office responsible for the prevention of money laundering and terrorism financing across the world within the United Nations. So what is this money laundering? Well, the basic dictionary definition for laundering means to wash. Your dry cleaners, you're taking your clothes to the laundry person so that they can clean it up and get it across to you well arranged and neat. So your dirty clothes come back to you very clean. So money laundering is the process of making illegitimate money appear to have a genuine source. So you have dirty money, you send it to the launderers, they clean it up, and then they get it back to you, integrate it in the system, and it begins to look like something that is genuine. That's money laundering for you. Now, what are the stages of money laundering that we have? I went through a lot of literature as we got to money laundering, and I saw that placement and layering some would describe placement as layering and some layering as placements. It started to get a bit confusing, but I want us to stick to the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime definition of these 3 stages of money laundering. Number 1, moving the funds from direct association with the crime. That's placement. So these guys have committed crime. They've made some bad money. The first thing that they intend to do is to move that money away from the crime that brought about the money and put it in something legit. And the truth is, for these people, they're not concerned with looking for criminals themselves. They will look for genuine businesses. Let me take this example. So if someone had made money, let's say from kidnapping, and they actually, in the banking system today, in the movement of funds, banks will always want to know where your money is coming from. Some of us would have had these issues in the past. If you had an account, you were receiving 200,000 naira, 100,000 naira, 150, 500, and all of a sudden the banks get to see 5 million naira in your account. You might find out that you cannot transact from that account until you get back to the bank. They would freeze your account, and then they would ask you, what is the source of your funds? What is the what do you want to use it for? What business are you into? We haven't seen this kind of stuff before and all that. Now, this is exactly what happens when placement is done. Placement is taking that dirty money from crime and trying to infiltrate the financial system in that sense. So bankers will be placed on inquiry. Everybody will be at alert because nobody wants to be caught on the wrong side of the law. Now for layering is disguising the trail to avoid attention. Somebody makes some bad money from drugs, from human trafficking, from terrorism, from selling of arms and ammunition. So what they do is they now use that money to sort of maybe like open, let's say, car washes now. 20 car washes across the states. Now you see that the man has 20 car washes, and then they're inflowing money. You won't want to suspect them because you feel, there are a lot of car washes now, so this person is doing some legit business. But behind those car washes were proceeds from crime. Now, the destination for everything that has to do with money laundering is integration, to ensure that that money comes into the financial system, especially to come back to the criminal. I'll explain this in the next slide. Now, I want to focus basically on some of the activities that money launderers do. These are some of the ways that they launder the money in different activities. Number 1, purchases. So when they've made that bad money, they want to purchase very expensive things like diamonds, like jewelry, Rolex watches, things that are really high in terms of their storage value and durability. So they buy these things, they keep them. Instead of carrying $100,000 or instead of carrying $1 million, which will be very bulky, when they purchase precious metals, just a small quantity of precious metal has enormous value, which they can just have in their pocket and convert it as much as they want in different pieces along the line of their money laundering journey. So they make those purchases. What you want to do is you do not want to be at the receiving end of those purchases. This is the need for the SCUML regulation. Also, they do investments. They invest in companies. They purchase shares, very many of them. They sponsor businesses, startups, like angel investors. You just be wondering, you have a better business plan. This other person doesn't have good enough business plan as you have. But you then find that they're getting sponsors, they're getting investors, they're getting people interested in investing in them. And you're surprised. But behind all of that is crime going on. Possibly, the guys who have that money to invest are trying to pay back somebody who is a criminal, who had transferred the money to them, and they're trying to cycle the money back to that person. Some of these investments that you see going on, the more you look at them, the less that you can see until you can go behind the trail of their transactions to discover what they're doing. Deposits as well. So if you have someone whose business is heavily involved in cash, maybe you're into food business and you have high volume of cash, the money launderers that have this cash, they give you the money to join your legit business and to deposit that in the bank. Now, because you're someone the banks already know that bring high volume of cash, they're not going to question it. So that bad money joins your good money and gets into the financial system. And possibly you now go back to those people, the criminals, to make purchases from them. In terms of invoicing now, over invoicing, maybe they're selling vehicle, the car is costing 5 million. You go to them and purchase it at 10 million. They'll issue you the invoice for 10 million. If you ask them how they came about the money, you say, oh, I sold my car for 10 million. The worth of that car is 5 million. The extra 5 million is actually a proceed from crime. So this is the SCUML mandate to checkmate money laundering in Nigeria. This is how it's done, from sensitization, registration, monitoring, inspection, and conviction. Pardon that, that's not conviction, but conviction. So what are the requirements in terms of registering for SCUML? You have your certificate of incorporation, your articles and memorandum of association if you are a company, your status report if you are an ordinary business name, your tax clearance certificate, which I think is just ordinarily tax identification number, and then audited financial reports. This was picked from the website of SCUML. Audited financial reports, not compulsory. In fact, if you ask me, not necessary. Then the authorized operating license. So you know that if you fall within some business, okay, like there are a lot of accountants on the platform. So let's say you're a chartered accountant or you're a consultant, your operating license will be your ICANN certificate. You have to present that. If you are a vehicle dealer, there's an association in Nigeria that oversees car dealers. So you have to have their license as well. If you're in the hotel and hospitality industry, there is the Nigerian Tourism Development Board certificate that you have to present before you can approach the EFCC for your SCUML registration. And then if you are an international NGO, now NGOs here refer to churches, clubs, associations, all these organizations that are non-profit making. So those are the basic requirements if you want to register for SCUML. And by the way, you can register live from the EFCC website. scuml.org. SCUML is free. This still reminds me of something else that people usually say in Nigeria. Bail is free. And just like every other thing that is free in Nigeria, it is free on the surface. When you go through the stress in getting your registration done and the timeline for that registration certificate or your number to hit you, you might then start to look for agents that know the rigors around the SCUML to assist you in registering. I know that the TheAccountSolutions platform have very many agents and specialists who know how to get these things and get them in good time as well. So you can get across to them if you're that interested. Now, this is SCUML inspections by the EFCC in 2018. This is a state-by-state presentation. Pardon 2018. This was the latest information that could be verified from the website. You know Nigeria now, it is well. Anyways, you can see state by state. I don't know what's happening in Rivers State. It seems like the EFCC are in love with Rivers State. They love to go there to inspect. I don't know why. Lagos is following closely, but a distant second with only 80 inspections, Abuja 50, Enugu, and so far I just highlighted maybe around like the top 10. Now, this same presentation that you have, this chart that you have here, this is a representation of that particular chart, but this time around, we are looking at the industries or the sectors. So you can see that for professionals will be qualified accountants, consultants, legal practitioners. You had 76 inspections. The fact that EFCC has not written you before does not mean that inspection is not ongoing. I'm not saying that you should expect their letter, but please put yourself in order and get ready. In fact, going through this, I was sort of shocked by the inspections that they had carried out. And I started to go through my mind the kind of monies that had gone through my account, you know, wondering if I'd gone beyond the threshold. And, you know, maybe I'll just go spool my statements to look at it again. You can see here also hotel and hospitality, 300 inspections, real estate and construction, 285, luxury goods. Yeah, you'd have your jewelry. What else apart from jewelry? You have precious metals, vehicles as well. Car dealers are under luxury goods. Supermarkets are also under luxury goods. And then non-profits and the rest. In terms of the number of registrations, state by state, this is like the top 10 states in terms of registrations. We had from the FCT about 4,600 thereabouts, over 2,000 in Lagos, Rivers, a little under 1,000, and so forth. Okay, so this is a very important slide here. What businesses and what professions are regulated by SCUML? So you can see dealers in jewelry, dealers in luxury goods, professional accountants, audit firms, tax consultants, clearing companies, legal practitioners, trust service providers, estate surveyors and valuers, hotels and hospitality, supermarkets, consultants and consulting companies, construction companies. Now, for all of these things that you have seen, all these lists, the different sectors of businesses listed here, once you put this on your MEMAT for your company, or you have them written in your status report as your business dealing on your CAC certificate, you must provide evidence of SCUML registration before a bank is going to open an account for you. You might have your account opened online because a lot of banks now have online account opening processes, but you will not be able to operate the account until you have got your SCUML registration done and completed. Some banks are going to give you grace. Once you present to them evidence that you have applied for the SCUML registration, then they would now permit you to run the account for possibly 2 weeks, 1 month, max 3 months before freezing your account again and demanding that you go provide the SCUML certificate or your SCUML number. Apart from all these businesses listed here, please note that from time to time, the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment or SCUML of the EFCC may list other businesses that are not listed here as the time goes on. So the fact that your business isn't here doesn't mean it won't be here tomorrow. But these are the ones that are listed as we speak. And sometimes I had an experience one time, a friend that I helped to register his business. He's a diction coach. He teaches people in terms of speaking and public speaking and all that. The name of the business was Speech Consults. Because of that consult in the name of his business, they asked him to get SCUML. It was at the point this guy went through almost 2-3 months. At the point of getting his SCUML issued to him, they now told him at the EFCC, you don't need SCUML, you're not a consultant. But would you blame the person at the bank? The lady was just trying to be very careful and asked that he got the SCUML registration because he had consult in the name of his business. So there are certain buzzwords that you must avoid, either in naming your business or in naming your business dealings. That's the object of your business. There's breakdown of the CBTRs and CBTs received by the EFCC and forwarded to the NFIU in the same 2018. I don't know what is happening with accounting and audit firms. We had 158,500 in terms of total reports. The nearest was 8,000 plus, maybe because accountants are used to doing reports and know how to do these reports. So the compliance is high on the accounting and audit firms side. So just a matter for notes, people are filing these reports. So it's kind of surprising because to me, I know a lot of people who have obtained SCUML, but I don't think I know anyone who's told me that they filed this report. So I can tell you that a lot of people are not complying with the filing of this report. But it is good that we understand the requirements and then we comply with them to avoid sanctions. What is your obligation? Now, according to the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act of 2022, DNFIs have various responsibilities, which I have listed as limitations to accept, duty to report, duty to disclose, and duty to identify. Now, what is limitations to make or accept? Please note that no person or body corporate shall make or accept cash payment of a sum exceeding 5 million naira or its equivalent. Equivalent of 5 million naira would be somewhere around maybe $5,500 or a little above that, depending on the exchange rate for today. So you're not supposed to receive or make cash payment 5 million naira to an individual, above 5 million naira to an individual, or above 10 million naira to a corporate body. If you do so, this is what the penalty is: 250,000 to 1 million naira, or the EFCC might withdraw or revoke your SCUML certificate. Number two, you have a duty to report. Now, in this case, this is not about cash now. We had the one for cash. You do not have to make or accept cash payments exceeding 5 million for individual or 10 million. Now, this is duty to report. You have to make a currency transaction report to SCUML of any single transaction, lodgement or transfer of funds in excess of 5 million naira or its equivalent in the case of an individual, or 10 million naira in the case of a body corporate, within 7 days from the date of the transaction via the SCUML online platform. Remember, within 7 days of receiving 5 million naira or making lodgement of 5 million naira from an individual or to an individual, or 10 million naira to a body corporate, you have to file the currency transaction reports, or you have a fine that within 250,000 and 1 million naira daily for the period where that report was not filed. You also have a duty to carry out a cash-based transaction report to SCUML of any single transaction in excess of $1,000 or its equivalent within 7 days from the date of the transaction via the SCUML online reporting platform. I am of the opinion, though, that this $1,000 is really small now. I think that this must have been done when maybe $1,000 would have been somewhere around 100,000 naira or 150,000 naira. Now, $1,000 is a million naira. I guess possibly they're supposed to increase this at the moment. So apart from duty to report, we have duty to identify. Now, where a financial institution or designated non-financial business and profession suspects or has reasonable grounds to suspect that the amount involved in a transaction is the proceeds of a crime or an illegal act, it shall require identification of the customer, notwithstanding that the amount involved in the transaction is less than 1 million or its equivalent. Excuse me. Now, let's even go back to the duty to report, because I need to bring something to our attention. You see that sometimes people try to escape these particular laws. So because they have said a single transaction, someone who wants to make 5 million naira transaction decides to split it into 4 million and 1 million. This tantamounts to layering, one of the schemes of money laundering. So they split it 4 million and 1 million. You, as the business person involved or the person making this transaction, avoid this. It equals an offense in the eyes of the law. When you split to avoid that radar, it is an equivalent offense. Please note that. The same thing with the cash-based transaction report. Instead of making $1,000, because you want to avoid the reporting, you decide to split it. It's tantamount to the same offense. Now, duty to identify. if you suspect that someone who's come to do a deal with you or someone who's made payment is doing so from the proceeds of crime, whether you're a financial institution or you are a non-financial business or profession, you have to identify that customer, know the person, collect the valid ID card, ensure that they are the person in that valid ID card, make a copy of the ID, keep it with you. Because if, for example, now this is what happens, the Nigerian financial system, it's easier to track certain funds right now. If the EFCC really want to do their work, they can track. People have your BVNs, they can spool your BVN and see your bank accounts from wherever bank that you have an account in Nigeria. They can trace your transactions, they can see the amounts that are moved, they can see who you're making the payment to. So if at all you have somebody who's been a criminal, who's been convicted of a crime, and the person is your customer that comes to you on a daily basis to make transactions or frequently, and you had not taken your time to report that you have suspicion that this person doesn't really look like they have made any substantial money to be pulling the kind of funds that they're pulling. So it's your responsibility as the business owner, as the tax consultant, as the jeweler, as the car dealer, to report and say, see, I'm not saying this person is into crime, but I feel that I'm not sure that this person is doing clean business. So you take the ID of the person, you ensure that you have it ready for reporting just in case. Apart from duty to identify, you also have a duty to disclose. Remember, this one affects international transfer. Like I said then, money laundering is most times more of an international crime. It happens that people who sponsor terrorists across border, they use money laundering schemes to move their dirty monies across the countries internationally. So if you have a transfer from a foreign country of funds or securities by a person or body corporate, including a money service business, of a sum exceeding 10,000 USD or its equivalent, it shall be reported to the unit Central Bank of Nigeria and the Securities and Exchange Commission in writing within 1 day from the date of the transaction. So if you receive a transfer from a foreign country in funds or in securities, you have to file a report to the CBN and the Securities and Exchange Commission within 1 day from the date of the transaction. Also, in duty to disclose, when you are traveling outside Nigeria, you have to declare all the cash that you have on you or negotiable instruments in excess of 10,000 USD or its equivalent if you're an individual in and out of Nigeria must be declared to the Nigerian Customs Service. People who have been traveling would understand this one. But if you haven't traveled outside Nigeria before, this is something that you have to pay close attention to. The penalty for failure to disclose this is forfeiture or a prison term of 2 years or both. So you're either going to be forfeiting whatever amount of money you had on you without disclosing that you had it, and you were about to travel with it across, I don't mean if you're moving from Lagos to Abuja, for example, but if you are traveling from Nigeria to the Benin Republic, you're traveling to Ghana, South Africa, the US, and different countries around the world, you have to declare amounts in excess not just in cash, in negotiable instruments as well, amounts in excess of 10,000 US dollars, or its equivalent. $10,000 would be somewhere around 10 million or a little under 10 million naira, depending on the exchange rate of today. So you have to declare that to the Nigerian Customs Service. The Nigerian Customs Service, they would now declare this to the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit for their knowledge and their activities. So like I said, for this one, this is the only penalty that has jail term attached to it. So your case is left to the judges. You're either forfeiting the amount, or you're getting a 2 years prison term. Of course, nobody will want to stay in jail for 2 years because of 10 million naira. I don't think so. I doubt that very much. Or you can even have the both. You could forfeit and still have jail term. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, in 2018, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission reports that there were 2 convictions out of the 956 inspections carried out. Ignorance is no excuse. Now, I did not dig further to find out whether those convictions were jail terms or whether those convictions were forfeitures. But in whatever shapes that the convictions would have come, nobody wants to be caught on the other side of the law. Firstly, you have your SCUML certificate, which you would have gone through loops and hassles to have approved for you, revoked, and then you're forfeiting certain amounts of money, you're paying fine. The fine's at somewhere around 250,000 naira daily. So imagine you fail to make those reports for 1 month, and they're deciding that they're going to charge you or fine you 500,000 naira per day. If you multiply that by 30 days, that, my friends, is somewhere around 15 million naira. Would you just close your business and go to sleep, depending on the kind of volume that you pull? So ignorance is no excuse. The filing of these reports can be done straight on the website of the EFCC, the SCUML website, scuml.org. It is there live. You can Google it, file the reports. It is now online. You can do that from the comfort of your homes. And also, if you want to apply for the SCUML registration, so long as you have your documents in place, it is also done live online at the SCUML website. At this point, let me grab some water while I await questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chris. We have a question already on the chat. Somebody is asking that if the process is rigorous and if the process is rigorous and getting it, you need an agent that knows their way to fast track it. Is it not a grandchild of money laundering? Did you get the question, sir?
Yeah, I got the question. It's a very valid question if you ask me. Now, when I say that the agents know the rigors, if you are someone who is doing something for the first time and someone has done it over 100 times, you can't tell me that. When I mean agents now, SCUML is free. Just like many things are free. There are a lot of free things today. For example, Washing my clothes is free. I can decide to sit in my house to wash my clothes. I can decide to go to a dry cleaner. I'm not talking of money laundering now. I'm talking about my clothes. I can decide to go to a dry cleaner and pay for the same thing I could do for myself. Nobody is saying that you cannot do SCUML yourself. Nobody is saying that. But if you had to choose between someone who is doing SCUML for the first time and someone who has done it over 100 times, who do you think would be faster? So please, this is EFCC matter. Don't quote me. I do not say that EFCC has rigors and you have to sort agents. No. By agents, I mean people who are experienced in dealing with these things. It is free. You can do it by yourself. You can go on the website, apply for SCUML, get your notification, follow up with the notice. You go to their office, you submit, you follow the procedures, you pick up. So there is nothing like you have to pay a certain amount of money or you need an agent to run it for you or go through the back door. No, but these agents that do this is they offer it as a service. And having done it over and over and over and over again, they would be faster than someone who is doing it for the first time. That exactly is what I mean. Because me look EFCC.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to ask this question about compliance.
Yes, please.
What is the agency or what are they doing about what's the EFCC doing about? I want you to expatiate about compliance. Compliance for those that have already obtained the certificate and are not disclosing, and for those that have not even obtained at all. Okay.
That's a very beautiful question, really. The truth is, if you're not, I'm not sure they are going to be very concerned about the people who haven't obtained at all. I said that because now in the regulation, it is a requirement. It's something that you have to do. But there is a second level to that. There's something that makes everybody want to comply. It's just like tax identification number. Your tax identification number, there was a time you could do your banking operations without your TIN until the banks got to make it compulsory that for you to run your banking transactions, for you to have a bank account with us, you must have your tax identification number. That forced everybody who needed to run that particular account or within the Nigerian financial system to then go get their tax identification number. It is the same thing with SCUML. They have said that, oh, NGOs, car dealers, different businesses must have SCUML. No problem if you decide that you're not going to get it. Register your business. So long as you decide that you do not want to open an account, nobody's going to force you to go to SCUML. But once you get to the banks to say, I want to start transacting, I want to have an account, the banks then say, where's your SCUML? Then you would then be forced to go to the EFCC to get that registration done because you need your transactions to be live. So for the guys that haven't registered, I do not think that the EFCC will be so much concerned about them. I think the EFCC would only be concerned about the people that are running their businesses, are live in the financial system, and are failing to make those reports. I know that they're not disturbing so many people right now. Like I said, they did inspection for 956 in 2018 out of the thousands of people who did registration in that year. So they're only selecting a few people. The criteria, nobody understands what criteria they're using. It might be based on the volume of transactions those people do. It might be the sector where they're in. It might be based on a tip-off from maybe some reports and someone saying, I'm suspecting that this is my neighbor, I'm not sure what they're doing and all of that. So the EFCC knows what they're looking for. But the fact that they're not coming to you today to inspect you does not mean that you should not by yourself enforce your compliance in case of tomorrow. The truth is, if the laws of this country are followed to the letter, I wonder who else, if there will be anybody left not guilty. I must be frank, because there's a whole lot of laws that are not followed. There's a whole lot of compliance that is not being done. It's just like the FIRS, for example. The FIRS would, from time to time, go to audit some companies. But there are so many companies who aren't paying tax in Nigeria. They leave those ones for some other time in the future. Maybe they have something to request from FIRS, and then they start to ask them for their tax clearance. It might happen like that for the EFCC. Maybe you want to travel abroad and they say they want your, maybe some report from the EFCC saying that this person is clean, and then the EFCC will say, we want to see your record of report for the number of years and all of that, and begin to apply the fines. So it is good that we understand them and comply with them from time to time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, someone is asking, after the registration of SCUML, what is required of us again? If reporting is required, how often? Okay, I think you can respond to that. And I actually let me ask this question.
Yes, please.
About the reporting, because I was wondering, how is the reporting? What's the format for the reporting? Do people know how they are supposed to actually report these transactions?
Yes, to answer the first question, yes, the reporting framework is not like a yearly thing. It's based on the transaction. So most of the reporting say 7 days from receiving this amount of money. So you've received 5 million naira from an individual, more than 5 million naira cash deposited in your account, or maybe certain amount, $10,000 transferred to your account. You're supposed to report that particular amount of money within 7 days. So it's not a report yearly at the end of the year like accounting reports would go. It's a consistent, constant thing. Now for the reporting format, I possibly would share that on the, I would have brought that, but if you go online, you click on the online platform, you just see the amounts, the person, the name of the person, where it's coming from, the amount, the account where the funds, just details of your financial, basic details, nothing extra. It's not like preparing a financial report. No, it's just a basic report detailing the transaction that occurred on a certain date from what parties, just like your bank statement, for example. If you pull up a bank statement, you would see funds coming in from this person, the name, the bank where it's coming from, the time of the transaction, the dates, the amounts, and all of that. So those are the basic kind of reports that you would need to file for the CBTR and the CTRs.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think that will be all. Thank you, sir, we've really enjoyed this webinar today. Very enlightening, very informative and interesting. Thank you everyone for participating today again. Thank you for all your questions. And I want to believe that everyone has gotten informed this evening. Please let's know that this webinar is recorded and it's on Facebook, so you can go back and watch it and listen to it over and over again. We're going to do this again next week. We'll come up with another interesting topic. Please invite your loved ones to be part of it. And this is being organized by the TheAccountSolutions platform. And thank you again for joining us. This is me. Okay, Mr. Omar, he wants to say something. Okay, sir.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining again. Thanks, Bolanle, for coordinating every week. Next week, I want to thank Chris also for diving into that discussion and breaking it down for everyone. I had challenges at a point sometime in Port Harcourt on this issue, and I had to go to their office back then. That was during COVID. So thank you, Mr. Chris. Next week, we'll be having an open session. There will be no topic. If you have anything to discuss, you want to ask any question on accounting, finance, taxes, just do be an open section. You just open the Zoom and wait for your questions. If you have any point you want to raise, want us to answer or address, you can still send it to the WhatsApp group during the week so we can put them together for next week. So on Sunday next week, an open mic session, come with your question. We just have an interaction, just discuss accounting generally, just discuss everything, accounting, finance, tax world, auditing, just bring it on. If you can't answer them, we'll refer you to experts that can answer them. So thank you again for joining us. Next week, Sunday, we'll come back here for an open mic session. Come and ask your questions free of charge and get possible answers, believing that we'll achieve our goals next week. Thank you, everyone. Share the link, invite someone, and have a wonderful week ahead. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Omar. All right. Thank you and have a beautiful evening.